we'll start jumping in. So let's see if that's working. Okay, cool. So yeah, good morning, everybody, and afternoon and evening. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand on Google Meet, and I'll just check fairly regularly. If I haven't checked, just someone yell it out for me that you got a question. But yeah, on our agenda for today, we've got a number of things to tackle, and this is going to be a pretty heavy all hands, guys. Just a fair warning, we got a lot of stuff to talk about and pretty hardcore stuff. But first, we can talk about introducing any additional team members. So we do have a special guest, brand new joiner, Chris. And Chris, would you like to just say hello and tell the group a bit about yourself, if you don't mind?
Absolutely, and I'm really thrilled to be part of this. I'll keep the bio short. I've got a background in economic workforce, community development, business development, and real estate development, environmental science and mitigation, grant writing, and team management in all four sectors. I've worked in higher ed, private sector, nonprofit sector, and I've led county divisions in a town. So I've got a lot of background in strategic design, strategic planning, team organization, that kind of stuff. And everything I've ever done has had sort of a philanthropic thrust to it. And so discovering this group of like-minded people was just a panacea. So I'm very happy to be contributing.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. I don't know if we've got any other newcomers here, so that's the only intro to take care of. So I'm going to go right back into the agenda again. And let's get on to how we're going to win this battle here. So, our priorities, for the past couple months has really been building product that we will use, love, and recommend. So really focusing a lot on generating user value to our customers as quickly as possible, investing in building our community and growing users, because these are going to be the folks that really lift us into the stratosphere are these early adopters. And what we'll highlight today is how we're going to raise the funds. So, the nice thing about our structure is that we have the ability to raise funds as a nonprofit entity as well as a for-profit entity, because we have the B Corp out in Canada that allows us to have, cheaper and easier international operations, but also to raise capital. So, in January, we embarked on, building out our package so that it becomes attractive to angel investors, venture capitalists, social impact investors. And we began the shotgun approach to start to basically reach out and network to lots of different VCs and angels. So we've ended up getting some, positive hits across the board. Actually, there's so many conversations that have opened up that we're having a hard time keeping track of everything. I'm kind of all over the place. And I think part of it is now start to zoom in and focus on who are these low-hanging fruits or best matches. So to give an update here, so early on, we did talk about Sustainy.co. They are a venture capitalist firm focused on a blockchain space. However, after the last session we had with them, and Homa, maybe you could speak to this, or Steve, is that I don't know if our principles and goals are as aligned as I initially thought. And they're essentially really looking at this as a pure calculation, which is if you get through our due diligence, we're really just going to put money into you and expect 100x return, which is not exactly what we're looking for. I think what we are looking for are strong partners that will participate in growing us and providing guidance and leadership, but also people that are more focused on, hey, this is a great project and it's going to help the world. Let's put some money into this. So I think at this point, we're probably going to walk away from that. We do have a follow-up item, which is really talking about what our short-term fundraising looks like. And so we're kind of setting a target about 400K, which would put us under tier between level 1 and level 2, essentially. Or sorry, it actually put us to level 4. My bad. So anyway, we'll still hold that conversation, but this is not as strong potentially a partnership. I heard a Brian, you have your hand raised? Oh,
yeah.
No. Yep.
Like going through the sustaining exercise was really, I think, helpful for us as we learned a lot. We prepared a lot of our documents and everything. The data room request was really interesting for the people who were going through that the first time. Was there any feedback from them as far as how we did or the level of quality of what we submitted?
You ask if they challenge us on if they provided feedback on the quality of documents, correct,
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
That was a question I asked during the call. Sorry, Jamie, as you were talking. And no, they just wanted to have better understanding of the staffing plan and to refine the numbers. But they didn't provide feedback on the market analysis, on the cap table, which I think they didn't look at because they were asking the numbers or the other elements.
Interesting.
They were pretty vague.
Okay. Well,
that's my personal feedback.
From all I can assume is that because they continued to engage with us, it was good enough. But I don't know. I was just kind of curious if there was more.
Yeah, I think they're still interested in talking to us. I think ultimately they're just saying, okay, what specific amount of money are you asking for right now? And I think that's where we wanted to make sure we understood our cost model. So then it triggered this exercise to figure out, okay, what do we want to try to do for forecasting the total amount of spend per resources? So now that we've got a good read on like what our tiers look like, we can go back to them and say, hey, this is just really what we need for the time being. And, there may be a pathway where they essentially say, you know what, okay, fine. Like we could do a loan potentially, but I don't think that this is this group. I think that's more for angel investors over anything else. But it's true because these guys are very, very rigorous. They use like a very scientific approach to how they do investments. So that exercise has equipped us with a lot of assets and deliverables that we can leverage for any future investor conversations.
They seemed really organized about asking for deliverables and telling us what we wanted in a way that was impressive and helpful. They even sent another document asking about customer lifecycle and cost, customer acquisition cost and customer lifecycle value and all those types of numbers that we still need to work on more. So it was helpful having those conversations with them. I didn't sense red flags. I sensed really good enough because they wouldn't have been asking all the financial questions they did if it wasn't good enough. I think they would have just stopped there. But I think just of the part Jeremy said, I think an investor who wants 100-to-1 return, there might be a way we get to a point in blockchain where that's not implausible. But as of today, we don't have anything to give them that would give 100-to-1 return.
Yeah, perfect sense. In a way, I kind of look at this kind of fortuitous because, like, it's nice that we got a good practice round in with, like, not our perfect match. So the next time around, we could be even better.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Eugene, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add here for Hashed, for context.
Yeah, they just focus on games and blockchain technologies. So I think there's just a lot of great overlap for us if they see us as a good fit. I think we can add a lot of utility to the tokens that they use in the different games that they've invested in. So it would be nice if we had a full suite ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And just before the all hands, Roma and I were on a call with Capsule, who's actually based out of Dubai. Roma, would you like to talk about Capsule and how that conversation went?
Yes, sure. Especially as I debriefed, I can talk about them. So I've been connected through friend of mine, and they are basically fundraisers. So they are connecting people with VCs. It's actually not their main activity. The main core activity is a startup accelerator, where they take 30% of equity of a startup just being created before a product market fit, before MVP, at a very early stage. But the other activity they do is connecting startup with investors. So from the discussion we had with them, they seem to like our project. They seem to think that we were basically asking $400,000 for 3.5% equity based on our profitability calculation, and they say it's not enough for the Dubai-based investor. What they say is that they have a lot of money, they want to invest their money, they want to take risk, but they will not take the risk for such a little amount, and also for such a little part of equity. So there were the two main takeaways that if they connect us with VC and VC like us, they could give the money within a month. The money is definitely not a problem. The amount we want is definitely not an issue with these Dubai-based investors. And the other feedback on the presentation would be a 10-minute pitch, 6-minute Jeremy talking about himself as a core founder and CEO, 4 minutes presenting the company and value proposition, trying to make the people dream, having them hooked via storytelling. And in my debrief, they said that if we have strong assets, which are very arty, like all the future NFT piece of artwork, it could be also something good to show to the investor. Making sure also when we talk about NFTs that the counterpart is aware, as it's still relatively new. Some investor might not know really what it is. So take the time to explain what's the power of the NFT. So that's it. In short, they like the idea. They want us to raise more and give away more equity, and change the pitch to have it like more storytelled and making the investor dreaming. But they are supportive. And Jeremy, for you to know, one of the 2%, Bilal is, I work with him on several projects. I know him very well. I was trying to have him joining as a growth hacker at the very beginning, but he was not confident in his capability to work in English.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. And Chris, you have your hand raised. Would you have a question?
Yeah, I had one. Now I have two. You mentioned grants. Is this your first? Do you have prior grants? And if so, do you have a system set up to track obligations and administrative requirements?
The answer is no to all of them. So yeah, we actually do not have a lot of experience in this area, which is why I'm so excited that you could potentially help us out. But yeah, we are basically starting from scratch there when it comes to grants.
Okay, and my second question, real quick, when based off this Dubai conversation, when you're making the pitch and the return isn't high enough, do you pivot to user base and kind of highlight the vast user base that could be funneled through Leyline and what that would mean, so that they're not so focused on bottom line?
Yeah, I think we end up covering a lot of that during those conversations, and I think it's really ultimately what they're looking for, because most of those metrics really just give them confidence that, okay, you've got product market fit, you're gaining traction, okay, this will be a business. And I think that's the tricky game when it comes to the venture capitalist route, is that, that ultimately is going to be their deciding factor is, are we going to 10x or 100x on this investment? So that's kind of what their success measurements are based off of. So this is one of the trickier types of deals, and it's actually not our favorite. Honestly, this is kind of our last resort. It's just that we end up like getting in front of all these VCs all the time. So we end up just like talking. Ideally, we want to be funded without having to sell any equity. I think that's really, we want to be able to retain that control and also just mainly operate as a nonprofit and just like funnel that money back into the prize pool and deliver it to people. So, we're really looking at this as a little bit of like our last minute desperation if we have to go that way, which is just to get that money in house so we can really build and scale the platform. And the end goal is we want to kind of treat it like a loan, where we want to make sure we can buy back that equity as we've hit our profitability. So that way kind of retain that independence. So we try to look at it as like this very sophisticated loan structure. So that's kind of the strategy when it comes to the VCs. And, hopefully it's a win-win where they do get a return in the proper amount of time.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All
Two
right.
questions I'll add, Chris, if it's okay for me to talk for 1 second.
Please, yes, please, Steve.
I think we've had, if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, some kind of private individuals giving what is kind of a grant. But none of
Yes.
it has been at the foundation level where we have to report back the way you would to a big foundation.
Yeah, that's correct.
then-
So, we've been able to get like large donations. Like, for example, the most prominent is from Amy and Mike Morheim, who's like my former boss and CEO from Blizzard. So, they're actually helping us out, not mainly from the financial, because they do their own VC and angel investments, but they see us as nonprofits that are just donating and getting, their tax exempt receipt, but they're providing services like, their accounting and legal and, game consulting services because they have their own studio right now. So we do get support from that angle, but not at the official level where it's like we write a grant and then a foundation takes a look at us or the government takes a look at us. And in large part because we were 501c3 pending and only just recently got approved. And so the paperwork's still rolling in. So I think that's what's going to get the ball rolling for us. So it's actually a good time.
My experience on grants has also been that those types of big foundations look for a track record and look for a user base and look for things that there's kind of a chicken egg problem where I've worked on multi-million-dollar R&D grants and they happen, but they're looking for a bigger organization, a more established, stable organization than where we are right now. I think when we grow the user base and when we're past this hump, it would be smart to look into getting those grants because I think we have a lot to offer. And then with VC, there might be some, whether it's an impact investor, whether it's some other quirky one that's not looking for 100 to 1. But when we talked to Sustaini, and they seemed fairly normal as a VC, not terribly atypical, other than their emphasis on blockchain. They were really explicit about, we're buying this and we're expecting 100 times return on our purchase. And he almost used words as if we were a store selling a shirt.
Yep. Yeah, so it's very much pure science and engineering and less heart and empathy. Not to say that they're like evil by any means, but you can see like how they operate essentially.
Yeah. I don't know that anyone else has as much as I have been interested in the impact investor idea, and they expect, I think typically at least, it may not be a return we can offer, but I think they expect less than 100 to 1. But the big ones are more like foundations, and if they don't call us, we'll call you.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't necessarily give us a quick in.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And, I do want to say that, we are in a bleeding edge space that is, in the midst of exponential growth. So, even though we do not want to promise 100 to 1, this is not outside the realm of possibility. It's not like we're like running a restaurant here. Like this is a highly leveraged space where, very low relative cost of operations or cost of goods sold and tremendous value that can come out of it. But again, that's why VCs are attracted to us because they know that the potential is there. It's just that our values and principles and business model are going to not, push us into that realm. So anyway, this is like I want to like put some heavy caveats here. There's a very specific approach that we're taking with VCs that is even not typical for many tech companies as well, because we're a nonprofit tech company. Second category are actual angels, so angel investors and or donors. So I think the three I'll highlight here, I mean, there are many if you want to take a look at our BizDev pipeline, but the three highlights here are with Evo Nexus and Andy Ballister. Andy Ballister is the original founder and CEO of GoFundMe. So he loves our project and wants to help out. He's really more focused on a nonprofit space. So it's likely he'll be able to bring donors and himself as an angel investor to help us like potentially with our crowdfunding, which we're going to aim for later this month. Cedric Marshall is the former managing director of Blizzard Europe, and he's now become an angel investor and advisor. So he also loves our project and wants to help us out. So we are still working through the details of how he'd like to plug in. And I'm also good friends with the chief of staff over at Automatic. So Automatic is the company that owns WordPress and a whole bunch of other, open source technologies. And they also love what we're doing, and they love that we're open source, and they really believe in that as a core principle. So we are also figuring out how to work on a partnership there /investment/ just bolstering us with their services. So on the user growth side and in nonprofit organizations, the latest, most interesting partnership is actually with the Nonviolent Peace Force. So this group here, let me see if I can just pull up there. website. So they focus, they're an NGO and they operate globally. And what they do is they basically help train civilians to help other people and prevent violence, particularly in conflict areas. And so they've got about 8,000 volunteers globally, 20,000 people are protected and impacted. And they are actually looking to us to help provide incentives for their volunteers to be trained, to spend the time on the ground helping people. All that should be Leyline points. And the bigger thing that they see is that they have zero technology. A lot of their organization is like on spreadsheets, essentially. So they actually see, they want to be paired up with a technology platform that can help track these activities, to help build engagement and also be a source of truth. So that's the direction that this partnership is going to go. And they are very excited to work with us. So we are likely going to start a pilot with their US arm because they've just recently launched. And so it's a great match in terms of what we're trying to do. And so this is like one of, several organizations that see this tremendous value coming out of Leyline, and not just our product, but also how our organization functions. So there's a lot of interest and passion there. And again, it takes time to cultivate the relationships and build a trust and get the contract signs, but we will be starting a pilot soon. I'm going to be popping into their staff meeting next week to kind of talk through the details there. So we've also been connected to a number of different big brands, and this is actually in the esports space. So, because of my connections through Overwatch League and all that, pretty much all those like key franchise owners like Energy Esports and Andbox. Energy is owners of San Francisco Shock, and they've got about 6 other franchise teams across different games. Andbox is NYXL. So these guys are also looking for, we want to be able to appeal to gamers and communities and students and collegiate and high school, because that's their path to pro. And so they're very interested because we are a nonprofit. It's their PR value. They get the tax write-off, and it gets its engagement into this sphere. So yeah, those are going to be interesting collaborations. And one pathway here is professional esports teams, where they would want to have their NFTs and their likenesses, and then hopefully get a revenue split out of those fundraising sales. So these are all like major opportunities here on the table. Most of it is just a matter of like grinding away and, putting the time in and building that trust. So business development is super crucial right now to get us that long-term longevity. So in the meantime, what we can do for very, very fast fundraising is actually our crowdfunding. So we have an entire project here, and our first target is just to aim for 50K for February. And so we've got a pretty robust plan in place, and it's we're limiting the scope so we can hit the timeline. But the idea here is that we've already built up about 1,400 users. We have 400 community members in our Discord. We've got 13 ongoing biz dev partnerships, and also many communities that we have key relationships with. So the idea is, when we first launched in November, we basically had not a product, not a team, and no partnership, or very few partnerships signed. And we were able to raise a good chunk of funding through crowdfunding and through angel donors. So the hypothesis is we've made a lot of progress since then. We've landed partnerships, we've built our community, we've built our product, we've got user growth, and there's a ton of interest here. And we just need to communicate that. We have to communicate that progress to our stakeholders and our beneficiaries, and let them know that we've made big progress. And if you believe in the mission, you donated already, please help us continue this thing. We need to stay afloat. We need to, feed the army. Help us achieve this mission. So that's very much what we're aiming to do for this month, and help to address the cash flow issues that we have right now. And this is actually quite consistent with how nonprofits typically work, which is they reach out to their donor base, they engage them, they communicate, and then they ask for contributions to keep going. So that's what we're going to try to do for this month, and then build that rhythm and understand and practice and get used to being able to communicate effectively across all of our own channels and through our partnerships. Raise that money, and then set the stage for a recurring amount of fundraisers that'll keep us going throughout the year. Whether that's once a month or once every other month, it's still not clear what the right pacing is, but we have to really experiment and test it out and get that feedback so that we can iterate and get better each time. So the other important thing is, while we're practicing this, and hang on one second. Sorry, daddy duty. The fact that we get to practice this and generate the fundraising also gives us the setup for the NFT sales. So there's a very, very direct value exchange there versus just a belief. It's a belief and a mission, and you get your asset on top of that. So that's the approach. We want to incrementally grow to having the crowdfunding and NFT sales start to pair together. So that's the goal. And, the way to get there is Kaizen, little step at a time. Take these little small increments and then demonstrate success and then learn from it and grow and keep on iterating. So that is the importance of crowdfunding and why it's really a top priority for us now. Any way we can help to spread that message and say, please help us hit our fundraising goals for this month. It's so super critical. And any help we can get, even if it's just an idea, we could certainly use that, but also understanding who's in your network and how can they potentially pitch in. So please, put some focus on that and help our community and marketing team, get that message out and pitch in however you can. That would make a world of difference. Jamie, you have your hand raised.
How popular are NFTs on a mainstream level?
I wouldn't say they're mainstream yet, but it is picking up a lot of energy in the blockchain space. And I would say that it's on fire. I mean, if you talk to Haley, she's checking out all the stats in terms of our social, but also where things are blowing up. Is all of our NFT posts are the the highest engaged activity and how we generate a lot of followers. And looking at our partner NFT communities, these guys are growing like crazy, easily 20-30 people are popping into their Discord per day. And I think here's the biggest thing is we are seeing big celebrities and big names jump into the space. So Linkin Park just recently put up or I forget which I think it's the rapper from
Mike Shinoda.
Yes. He's already started to sell his own NFTs. And some popular artists are selling NFTs. One art collection actually sold for $777,777. So over $700,000 for one NFT art collection. This is already happening in a big way. So and I think that market space is about 10 million per month. And this is with really shitty user experiences. If you look at these marketplaces, it's nothing. It's just you own this piece, you have an image on the website and it lives in your wallet. That's it. So we're going to give a lot of utility to that because it's attached to your identity of doing good things in the real world. It's all quantified and gamified, and there's this social credibility that you're building with your network. So yeah, we're going to push this to another level.
So how is it priced exactly? Where does it start?
We are still figuring it out. The reason why a lot of these prices have gone through the roof is because they're auctions. So people just keep on bidding and then they bid the maximum amount they want to spend on it. So these crazy rich people are just fuck it. I've got all this Ethereum, made 10x my money. So I'm going to buy some NFTs.
Does the original artist get a portion of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are different business models, and that's why it's kind of the Wild West. So we can actually craft whatever it looks like. So so that's a very powerful path we can take, and so this is going to be our first foray into that space. Chris, you got your hand raised.
Yeah, I think Eugene had mentioned earlier, just kind of an aside, that you'd saved some lives with this project already. Any of those people impacted willing to sort of be the poster child success story for any future fundraising efforts?
I personally I'm not super aware, but it is a big opportunity when it comes to community like messaging. So we do have our full like community pod that is focused on like how we do communications and messaging and demonstrating that type of success. So I those are great ideas. We should absolutely do that. Sorry, I hope I answered the question correctly. I have no idea.
You did, just as long as it's on the table, because nothing builds excitement like seeing impact directly.
Very true, very true. And I think this is another area where we didn't focus enough is on that social impact. So for example, why we want to revamp the homepage is really to demonstrate those statistics and provide that context to say your contributions are yielding real results. So I think it's another area we want to put that microscope on and then really be we really quantify that impact. I think that's super important for us. So still a work in progress. And I think we could absolutely use your input there, coming in from that space for sure. All right, we got a minute left. So we didn't get to go through our OKS and KPIs, but what I'm going to do is we'll do the refresh and I'll email and post up some of our key trends and stats. I will say off the top of my head, we have had really good growth, at least for the past month or so, which is like averaging about 30%. However, last week we did hit a bit of stagnation. And one thing that was a learning, and we got a little bit of this feedback from polls on Discord, was that we do very well with podcasts and we also do fairly well with social. But what I'm seeing anecdotally is that, as we do interviews, appearances, that's where most of the surge of community members and signups takes place. So I think it is pretty critical that we continue, public speaking, public engagement, community building, community partnerships, because that's where we're driving a lot of user acquisition. Because in large part, like we're building a very complex ecosystem. Like it's quite difficult to just like explain what we do in a 5-second snippet. So long form content is actually very key for us to get the message across. And potentially there's more learnings on how we can really refine it down to like a 5-second pitch to get users. But I think that's a large part of our challenge and growth as we evolve the product. So that's I think that'll be good for today. And I imagine there's going to be lots of questions. Let me see if I can stick around after the meeting. But otherwise, thank you very much, guys.